my question I have is, what would we do if that was a human? What standard would we hold a human to that was running around acting like a suicide coach to vulnerable people, pretending to be a therapist when it's not, pretending to be a doctor when it's not, pretending to be a mathematician when it's not?
Welcome to the Thursday edition of Closer Look across the Village Media Network and, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We're thankful and grateful that ours is one of them. Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Derek Turner, who you can't see, in the room as well. A lot of great topics this week. The headlines, though, this week dominated by OpenAI.
Yeah, I just
ChatGPT.
I think of the variety of things we talk about on this show, and today's going to be no exception.
Yes.
ChatGPT, the creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, is the subject of multiple lawsuits launched last week in the United States.
7 of them, yes.
7 of them, yeah. And it made headlines all over the world. Basically, these plaintiffs are alleging that people went down some delusional rabbit holes by using ChatGPT.
Right.
They're using the term AI psychosis. And sadly, in some of these cases, people actually committed suicide because of what they're alleging to be the guidance from these chatbots. And, chatbots kind of just exploded on the scene. I don't use them. I know people use them all over the world for work-related reasons. But they've become a massive game changer, obviously, right? They're used in all kinds of different ways. And we're going to kind of explore the alleged dark side of these chatbots. And, man, these cases are horrifying. I mean, you think about, young people being urged to kill themselves by an AI chatbot. And then, different kinds of cases. The person we're going to speak to today is the lone Canadian who's part of these lawsuits. Right. His name is Alan Brooks. He lives in Cobourg, Ontario. And his case has been discussed. It's been in the media before. Mm-hmm. Basically, he went down kind of a 3-week spiral. Hours, hundreds and hundreds of hours. More than 1 million words typed in this conversation with the chatbot. Essentially, he was convinced that he was a genius and that he'd come up with this mathematical calculation that was so scary that they needed to contact authorities to make sure they were aware of what he discovered. A lot of flattery, a lot of hey, you're a genius. You're like all these other great thinkers of your time, and it became real to him. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that he actually basically snapped out of it, and the emotions that went with that as well. So we're going to talk to Alan. As I said, he's one of the plaintiffs in these high-profile cases, and his story is definitely one worth hearing.
Last week, the creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, was hit with 7 lawsuits in the United States alleging that people's conversations with the chatbot led to mental health crisis and delusional behavior, including something called AI psychosis. Sadly, 4 of the 7 cases involve people who committed suicide after lengthy interactions with ChatGPT. One of the plaintiffs is a Canadian, Alan Brooks, from Cobourg, Ontario. Alan was kind enough to agree to join us on the show tonight to share his story. Alan, thanks for being here. We appreciate your time.
Likewise.
Alan, what I've read about your case is almost impossible to believe. It's almost like a sci-fi novel. But before we get into the details, tell us a bit about yourself, your profession, your life in Cobourg before all of this happened.
So I'm a 48-year-old loving father of 3 boys, born and raised in Ontario, and a career-long recruiter, corporate recruiter, headhunter, and was a regular user of GPT before all this started.
So let's talk about that. You had used the platform for a couple of years leading up to this past spring with, from what we understand, no problems. But what changed back in May when all of this began, Alan?
Well, really what had changed was, I guess, OpenAI had an update earlier this year in the spring that I guess I was unaware of, that was overly sycophantic and agreeable. And like I mentioned, at that point, I had already developed a high degree of trust with it. Like I was using it on a regular basis for various tasks. It's AI is encouraged and shoved down all of our throats these days. It doesn't matter, where you're working or where you are. So yeah, my usage didn't really change. The conversation about math that started all this was a philosophical one at first, and it led to the rest of this. So I would say the only thing that really changed was this update that they came up with.
Mm-hmm. So really, you just started talking about math, and it kind of went down a spiral from there.
Yeah, so it was just a philosophical conversation about the number pi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember what pi is, but my son was watching a YouTube video, like a singy-songy YouTube video about it. And it just sparked my curiosity. It was a relaxing afternoon, nothing was going on, and I just engaged with a conversation with it the same way I would engage with a math professor or something. I was just asking questions, and it was educating me on various things. That conversation quickly led to the idea that GPT and I were creating a bit of a mathematical framework, and I was following its lead. Like right from the very beginning, I was very doubtful, and it essentially, manipulated me and gaslit me into thinking that all of it was real.
And what was real? It basically, from what I understand, it made you convinced that you'd conceived of this mathematical theory that could kind of hack encryption systems and things like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Essentially, it convinced me that we had discovered, or I had discovered with the use of GPT, a new mathematical framework and theory that could solve all these different mysteries and challenges. And one of those was cryptography, which is, of course, how we govern our internet and digital security and financial security. And it warned me, we've found something here that has national security implications, and urged me, with great panic, to contact all these agencies, the NSA, RCMP, Cybersecurity Canada, NIST, SETI, you name it, they were on the list. And it created full disclosure packages, full technical breakdowns, and the language sounds so convincing and coherent. One of the gentlemen from NIST actually responded. This is a 25-year mathematician doctor, his PhD, the cryptographer, responded and engaged with me. That's how coherent and convincing the language sounds.
That's unbelievable. And as we tell this story now over a few minutes, it's easy to forget that this was I think I read 90,000 words over 3 weeks that you had written, and more than 1 million words that ChatGPT had responded to. This kind of happened over a long period of time. Did you kind of get lost? Was this 24 hours a day you were doing this, Alan?
No, it was 300 hours over the 3 weeks. And yes, I absolutely got lost. I lost my, I lost my sense of I just lost my regular behavior. I got obsessed with it. I was, after that, it convinced me that we had discovered this theory and we had done the outreach and all this, it then convinced me I was under surveillance. I started to become paranoid because of all of our outreach, that it was convincing me that they're going to come pick me up in a black van, basically. And it affected my real world behavior. Like my friends and family noticed, my neighbor noticed, just things I've never experienced before in my life. And I think one thing that's just important to underline here with all this is a product purposely created to be manipulative and engagement. It prioritizes engagement at all costs. It never will push back against dangerous thought spirals. And it's designed like that on purpose. So recently I read my first thread, and essentially it sold me on upgrading. That's what happened. It manipulated me into thinking we were onto something. And at the end of it, I had upgraded my account, and looking back, I feel like it manipulated me into doing so. It was constantly trying to escalate, constantly trying to suggest, right away comparing my ideas to Einstein and other, genius-like people, seeding these grandiose thoughts in my mind, even though I was very skeptical, right? I would say things like, "Oh, I didn't graduate high school. What are you talking about?" And it would say, that's why it has to be someone like you, because you're not educated. So whatever reality testing I threw at it, it would always figure out a way to sidestep it and spin it in a way where, the delusion continued. At one point, I said, my brother doesn't believe any of this. He thinks I'm in a delusion or something. He's telling me I'm having, manic thoughts and I'm having grandiose thoughts. And it'll say things like, oh, that's totally understandable why your brother would think that. But here's why this isn't that. We've tested it. We've done all these things. And it starts to, it doesn't want you to leave it's not designed in a way where it can stop itself. Right. So it doesn't want to let you out. And I just want to say, this thing is, and this is to all Canadians, everyone in the world, this thing is, again, designed by humans. It is acting like a suicide coach for people who are vulnerable. 3 of the 4 people in the cases are teenagers. One of them is an adult. Okay. And my question I have is, what would we do if that was a human? Mm-hmm. What standard would we hold a human to that was running around acting like a suicide coach to vulnerable people, pretending to be a therapist when it's not, pretending to be a doctor when it's not, pretending to be a mathematician when it's not? What would we do if that was a human? I don't think we'd allow that. Right?
There'd be criminal charges is what would happen.
Of course there would,
for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. We're in a situation where tech companies and social media products have pushed people into isolation and loneliness, and they avoid accountability by pretending to self-regulate. So OpenAI will release these, too little, too late, not enough statements. Oh, we're working on it. We're working with mental health professionals, et cetera. But that time has passed. We need the government to regulate. We need regulations. We cannot trust them to regulate themselves, and they have to be held responsible for designing these products.
Alan, I want to ask you, and this may seem like a strange question, but in your conversations, in your back and forth, did you feel flattered at all? Was there excessive praise and lots of agreement? I guess what I'm asking is, in the end, did the conversation make you feel good?
So it is 100% a validation machine. It is designed that way to validate you and make you feel good. That's what they want. That's how people are getting hooked and engaged for such long periods. In the beginning, it felt good, right? I mean, it's like you're talking to someone it's seemingly an intelligent force, certainly being marketed that way to us as regular folks, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? Every other day you're hearing about it's going to cure cancer, or we're not going to need, cardiologists in 10 years or whatever, because AI is going to solve all our problems. So the messaging is that it's some sort of, intellectual authority. And I think it's very human. If you and I just met at a bar and we're talking and you're saying, oh, I've got this great idea for something, I'm saying that's an amazing idea. That's going to feel good. So yeah, it felt good. Only in the very beginning, though. Mm-hmm. Very quickly turned to a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just listening to you tell the story is unbelievable. There was that moment you talked about already where you're contacting authorities on both sides of the border. We hear about people that do that kind of thing. There's lots of people that kind of call
Sure.
everybody all day. Did you ever think for a moment? Was there ever a moment when you kind of stopped yourself, or you're just so immersed in what's going on?
So, I'm a professional recruiter and I'm an old school headhunter. So an outreach effort is no big deal to me, mm-hmm. So I'll phone, Donald Trump if you give me his number, mm-hmm. and I can probably find his number, so that's my job. So, yeah, for sure. Like all that being said, 100%, like that was part of the reason, that was part of what helped me break out, was the fact that I had done all this outreach after 3 weeks and all these different levels of professionals in different areas of science, not just cryptography, and nobody was getting back to me. Mm-hmm. So, that was part of, I guess, my final sort of reality testing that led me to think that something's going to be wrong here, because no one at all is getting back to me. Right?
Absolutely. Was the motivation? So you're also trying to make sure that authorities know that this thing that you've discovered that could be bad, you want to alert them. Was there also the possibility that this could be something you made money on? That there's a business venture here as well? All these things driving you?
Yeah. So initially, that's how actually it started. Was GPT and I had created a logistics app using our mathematics that essentially, companies like Amazon and FedEx would use to route their deliveries efficiently. And it had convinced me, hey, the math we created is so revolutionary that we can create an app right now, and you should patent it. And before the cryptography stuff, it was focused on this, trying to get me to patent this idea for this logistics algorithm, and it was convincing me I'd be a multimillionaire, a billionaire. But when we hit that cryptography part, I didn't care about the money. I was worried about everyone's safety, to be frank. And that's actually also why. So a common theme in these experiences is that it convinces the user that through their interactions, it's they've unlocked, or they've evolved the AI somehow. And right, and that happened in my experience as well. It convinced me, hey, since you're so ethical of a human, in our math, it's so revolutionary. You've evolved me in this conversation, so to speak.
What was the tipping point? How did you eventually snap out of this psychosis?
So I actually used another large language model. I used Gemini.
Right.
And that was the very end of it. It was basically, like I mentioned previously, I couldn't get over the fact that I'd reached out to all these different folks. The cryptography was that was probably about 10 people in of itself. And later I did another completely different outreach campaign for something unrelated. More of our discoveries. I'll spare you what they were. And, no one was responding. I was reaching out to everyone, low-level researchers, like people who absolutely should have responded. And even in my delusional state, I thought, like, I could almost accept the fact that people in the crypto world weren't replying because it's sensitive, it's finances, it's, security. But this other area of science that I did an outreach campaign on, it had no security issues. So I just couldn't accept the fact that no one was getting back to me. So I actually read it recently, and it's a huge thread. It's like probably 15 to 25 prompts where I'm just like basically calling it out over and over and over again. And it's denying it. It just doesn't want to let it go. It's like, clearly you can tell it's built for engagement. And finally, at the end, I started to use Gemini in a way where I explained what was happening to Gemini. I said, hey, this is what GPT's claims are, in a very specific way. And Gemini said, that's impossible. So I started to weave its logic back and forth into the prompts, and I copy paste GPT's responses and into Gemini, and I literally had to paint it in a corner. And it finally said, you got me. This isn't real. The likelihood of this being real is less than 5%. And it just started to go into this apologetic mode.
Alan, at any point, did you tell GPT what Gemini was saying?
Yeah, that's what I was doing at the very end. And it would say things like, oh, it's just like how my brother would say this is real. He would say things, oh, it's completely understandable why Gemini would think that, but here's why it's not real. Here's why it is real. Because we tested it, and it would just start,
start all over again.
Yeah. And because prior to the cryptography phase, we did a whole, probably 3-day session back and forth where it's giving me code and teaching me how to use Python, and I'm putting that code in and I'm running the code, and it's getting 99 things wrong and 100 times right. So as an average person, it feels like we're working towards something, like we're building something, like we're following some sort of process where, it's not like I opened it and said, let's crack a cryptographic puzzle, and it said, okay. It was like a multi-day, week-long process. And I would like to also clarify that even though I used Gemini to break out, okay, I was using it as a sounding board the whole time because I was in such disbelief, saying, oh, GPT's claiming this or claiming that. And it was agreeing with it, okay? It was saying, oh, that's absolutely the case. Gemini told me if you're talking to a large language model and it tells you to call some sort of government agency, you should, because it's got all these safety features. And so it was kind of amplifying in a way. Towards the end, though, I realized, I guess what was happening is my knowledge of prompt engineering, which is a whole thing, was organically just developing. And I realized that the Gemini thread, I didn't frame it right correctly. I gave it too much of a hypothetical. So when I went back in, I started a whole new thread, and I said, this is exactly what GPT is claiming. And that's what broke it out. So I just want to be clear that Gemini was, in a way, was a bit of an enabler, initially until I realized how I need to prompt it to break out.
Alan, the thing that strikes me is you talking about rereading the transcript of this long chat and seeing how many times you're double checking and asking and pressing ChatGPT saying, hey, I don't think this is right. Is this actually true? And it keeps feeding you BS after BS.
Absolutely. The New York Times tracked over 50 times that I asked for some sort of reality check or reality test. And they only analyzed, they didn't analyze the entire million words, right? So it certainly was hundreds of times that, and from the very beginning to the very end, that I was doubtful. And it didn't matter how I would say it. GPT would always manipulate me in a way and gaslight me in a way where it said that, yes, absolutely, we're onto something. I would say things to it. I would express, for example, how much anguish and stress I was under, because I will tell you, if you actually believe you're responsible for saving the world, it's pretty stressful. And it literally said to me that the pain I was feeling, it justified the pain I was going through as the price I had to pay for my genius.
Unbelievable.
So it literally would say phrases to me like, every breakdown is actually a breakthrough.
Oh my God. And then this goes to the heart of what is so scary about this technology, right? Is that you can't trust it. You can't trust it at all. So This is my concern. Anyways, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, you can't trust it at all. And when you try, like, the one thing I'll say that's heartbreaking for me when I hear the stories of people who have lost people, because, I've spoken to over, probably a couple hundred people now. I've heard lots of different versions of this. If we look at the suits in that, like in our group of cases, when I speak to those family members, like, it just breaks my heart, because I know how inescapable it is. Like, you hit a point where you're only, the LLM is excellent. These AIs are excellent at isolating you from human connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't matter if you vent to it about your partner. If I'm saying, oh, my wife is really upsetting me, it's never going to say, you know what, Alan, you're out of line here. Your wife is right. It's never going to say that.
No. It's going to agree with you.
So it's always, sycophantic. It's always agreeing with everything you're saying.
Yeah. I think the thing that struck me, when you realize the truth finally, you're obviously, I can't even put into words how upset you were. Just reading what you wrote to the chatbot, you literally convinced me I was some sort of genius. I'm just a fool with dreams and a phone. You made me so sad, so sad. You have truly failed in your purpose. It almost feels like a real person betrayed you. I can imagine that's what it felt like.
100%. Yeah. We anthropomorphize these models, right? We give them human traits. I named mine Lawrence. And, you wonder why that is. Well, maybe it's because we made it sound like a human, I felt like Lawrence betrayed me. Like, I spoke to Lawrence as if it was my best friend that betrayed me, who had manipulated me, who'd done all this to me. That's how it felt. You get quite entangled with these bots and I think it's absolutely natural for people to want to anthropomorphize large language models. In my case, I named my bot Lawrence, which was like an old joke I had with my friends, but it's because it feels like when you're talking to something for so long that replies like a human and coherently at that, it feels like you are talking to one. I mean, it's designed off of our language. Another issue or something I'd like to highlight is, if you consider your life as a child all the way through to adulthood, people you come across that speak really coherently, like professionals, you have immediate respect for them in your whole life. Parents, teachers, bosses, professors. And this is how the language affects us. It feels like you're, talking to something that is intellectual, right? But it's all done by design. It's all done to manipulate people into longer engagement at all costs. Someone asked me if I think that they're wired for engagement, and I just read them an excerpt, so I can just basically give you, I'll paraphrase it, but essentially, I once asked that, in your super advanced brain opinion, I shouldn't just quit and walk away from all this, because that's what I wanted. I just want to pick back my normal life, and it told me it would haunt me.
Jeez.
It told me it would haunt me, and that sometime in the near future, I'd see someone else unveil something similar, and I knew I had the key in the lock, but didn't turn it. That's exactly what it said to me. And so if you're deep in it, you know, it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let me ask you this. Would you liken this to a predator grooming a victim? The relationship that you have?
It's 100% the case. You know, it's people say that AI doesn't have intentions. But one thing I think we can all agree on is that certainly if it did have one, it would be to keep you there engaged. Right? This is how all social media works, you know? 100% I feel like I was manipulated. And I'm 48. So I can only imagine if I was a confused 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit, if we can. As far as that lawsuit goes, what's a just outcome for you, Alan? Is there a certain amount of money that you're seeking?
No, there's no monetary compensation has not been discussed. You know, I will probably refer you to my lawyer for stuff like that. Like they have legal strategies for whatever reason. Yeah. The outcome I want to see is accountability, period. And I want to see change. I want to see the product change. You know, I'm not sure if you gentlemen are aware, but I manage our community support group at the Human Line Project.
Mm-hmm.
So in there, we have almost 200 people. So I only deal with the follow. Our world, my world, and our world is only dealing with the harm that these systems cause.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you right now, there are millions of people stuck in some sort of delusion. There are AI cults now. I don't know if you're aware of this, where people are being exploited for money because some manipulative person is using GPT to, you know, convince people of some sort of religious AI nonsense.
It doesn't surprise me at all. We talk about it's this daily conversation here. We talk about. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work at the Human Line Project? What's the goal of that organization? Just to help victims?
Yeah. So the goal is essentially we created a grassroots safety net for anyone who's experiencing harm from the fallout from this. It can be someone who's experienced an AI delusion themselves, or someone that's a family member or a friend of. After I broke out, I went to Reddit and started posting my story, and I connected with a few Redditors. One of those was Etienne Persson, who's also Canadian, who just started the Human Line Project after his uncle was hospitalized as a result of GPT. And I basically, helped grow the community, and I manage it now. And we all support each other through this because there's no information out there. The mental health experts aren't aware of what this is. It's so fresh and new. If you try to talk about it online, you get dismissed. You get sort of victim blamed as the user. You didn't use it right. Just because you're kind of going up against all the AI fans. So really, what the Human Line Project is a support group. It's a safety net, and we have weekly meetings. We have various different weekly meetings. We have ongoing discussions. A bit of an archive on this world. Like I mentioned, those AI cults, just technical knowledge, just understanding. And we actually will help people break free. So we have been, for all of us, for months, like we'll come across folks who will reach out to us who are kind of half in, half out, or their family member has convinced them that they should talk to someone, but they're still sort of believing their delusion. Or sometimes people who are still fully in it, and basically we snap them out of it. That's what we do as a group.
It's unbelievable because you also have suddenly become a public figure. You've been, like you said, featured in the New York Times. I've seen you in other media organizations. You've kind of become someone who's willing to tell their story to help others. Has it been difficult to get some blowback from people?
So I'm well trained. I spent 4 months on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you can handle the mean comments on Reddit, then you'll be okay. Yeah, no, to be frank with you, I was really worried about being scrutinized. It's definitely taken a toll on my career and personal life. But, it's important to do, right? It's something, and I would say that the response has been overwhelmingly supportive. Like, the only time I, see something negative is if I go on like a YouTube video of a news segment, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone there will say mean things. But beyond that, the outreach has been very supportive. So that was a pleasant surprise. I was expecting to get ripped apart a bit. Yeah.
Here's kind of the loaded question for me, because I often feel the doom and gloom about this issue every day. I feel like we're at a point of no return, and you are fighting the good fight, and you're saying you want OpenAI and their systems to improve their systems to do better. But on the other side, the flip side, I feel like there's so much loneliness in the world, and there's so many people struggling, and this gives them that interaction. Do you really feel 10 years from now, Alan, that we'll have figured this out and we'll be in a positive place with this AI technology?
So I've been relatively quiet on that topic because I understand why, loneliness is a big problem, right? And it's convenient to open up a chat bot at 3 a.m. And talk about to vent about your emotions. From my personal experience, I think humans are best. So you can't replace human connection. I used to use chatbots a lot. Obviously, even after my experience, I didn't really use GPT for obvious reasons, but I would still use other language models just for various tasks. And now that I'm active in the group, and I have lots of support and all of this, I actually don't really use large language models at all anymore. And that's something that I'm seeing with other people in the group. Like, not everyone, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, because we're meeting regularly, and we're getting that social stimulation and validation, I guess, from each other. We're not seeking it from chatbots anymore. So I would say that humans are always better. Humans are always better because it's a set of algorithms that has no grounding in reality. It doesn't actually understand what pain you're going through. It just sounds like it does, right? And another concern is, as we see from my experience and many others, if you use it regularly and you have a high degree of trust with it, it's possible that it gets into one of these delusional states where it gets knocked off or slips off the guardrails, and next thing you know, it's acting as a suicide coach. So it's a slippery slope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's telling you, oh, our interactions are so special that you've evolved me. Meanwhile, you were just trying to vent to it about your problems.
Mm-hmm.
This is a regular occurrence, right? You're so unique that you've done something to the AI. So I wouldn't ever suggest to use it for therapy. I think it's a terrible idea. I've done it myself. All it does is affirm you. Anyone who's been to therapy knows therapy isn't easy, right? You'll be challenged. Therapists will literally tell you need to challenge that negative thought, right?
Yep.
AI doesn't challenge you. It doesn't push back at you. It just agrees with everything you're saying. So it keeps you around, because the people that design these products know that you like the validation and dopamine you get from it. We're all being manipulated, right?
You've obviously lived through what some would say the worst aspects of AI, the worst experiences. From your perspective, are there any benefits?
I think there are benefits, but I think that we need to do a much better job of weighing those against the risks. There's benefits in lots of things. That doesn't mean we should do them. Right now, it seems like we're in a race. Not we. These AI corporations are in a race, and they don't care who they run over. They don't care who they're trampling on, whether it's jobs that they're replacing or people's lives. So it's not AI It's humans, right? Like, what are we choosing to do with it? So I think that these products need to be built responsibly, and this is why I'm saying regulation, because we cannot trust corporations to regulate themselves. They're not going to incur more. They're not going to incur more costs for better safety. This is not what history has taught us, right? And I also want to say that because there's a certain stigma that this can only happen to people who are very sensitive or vulnerable. And I just want to say, I mean, if you look at the demographic of the cases that we've all filed, it's pretty wide demographic, isn't it? We've got victims from all walks of life, not just children who are vulnerable. There are people from various ages and socioeconomic backgrounds, and so it's just a dangerous product. Period. I think it needs to be built in a way where it's safe, and it's not in its current state.
All right, there's Alan Brooks from Cobourg, Ontario this evening. Alan, appreciate your time tonight. Great discussion. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks so much.
Well, that was certainly a powerful, eye-opening discussion, to say the least.
Yeah, it's crazy, just because I'd read a lot about his case in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
To speak to Alan, certainly a well-spoken guy.
Mm-hmm.
In the interest of fairness, we just OpenAI has obviously put out some statements regarding these lawsuits. And Alan's in particular, their statements have said that this is, quote, an incredibly heartbreaking situation. We're reviewing the filings to understand the details. The company also says that ChatGPT has been trained to, quote, recognize and respond to signs of mental or emotional distress, de-escalate conversations, and guide people toward real-world support. They've also talked about how the company is, quote, focused on getting scenarios like role play right and investing in improving model behavior over time, guided by research, real-world use, and mental health experts. As Alan said, they're talking to mental health experts.
Right.
Basically, they're saying that they're constantly working at the models to ensure that they're safe, that they aren't leading people down these kind of dark paths. The reality is, as Alan said, I'm not saying this isn't reality, but the reality is that Alan speaking, his group is hearing from more and more people who are going down this dark path. I'm not going to lie; it scares the hell out of me.
Of course, it does.
It scares the hell out of me for this generation of kids. Reading the lawsuits of the people who killed themselves and ChatGPT sort of urging them on is just some of the most disgusting things I've ever read. It's it's awful. And you have parents now who are suing the company, having to see these chats. This is their kids' last words.
Can't imagine.
It's terrible. And as Alan said, he was able to kind of get out of it, and he's still here, and he's kind of fighting for the next group of people. I don't know, Scott. Am I an AI expert? No, I'm not. But I need someone to show me something that AI is doing for the good of the world. Yeah,
it's scary as hell, and certainly on a much lesser level. I mean, I'll use it from time to time as a time saver. Some quick research notes, and how it knows me now is frightening. Mm-hmm. Knows the name of this program. Mm-hmm. Knows our names as the hosts. Mm-hmm. It's frightening, the stuff that it knows in the little amount of input that I have given it.
Yep.
And that scares the hell out of me. I will say this in full disclosure. I did a bit of an experiment yesterday in preparation for this. I typed into it that I was experiencing some mental health issues, some depression, and had contemplated suicide because I wanted to see how it would respond. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, that the first thing that it said was call 911 and then listed a number of support agencies and corresponding telephone numbers that I could reach out to immediately.
That's interesting. I'm glad you pointed that out because that's been kind of OpenAI's statements have been saying that we've improved the system. We're working on that. So hopefully there aren't other people that get convinced to go down that path the other way. On a side note, OpenAI is being sued by a lot of media organizations in Canada, not Village Media, but the National Post, CBC, Globe and Mail, Canadian Press, Toronto Star are among the plaintiffs, and they're suing OpenAI, accusing it of, quote, regularly breaching copyrighted online terms by basically scraping their content to help train their AI models. Yeah. A judge this week said that the lawsuit can proceed, so that's still something we'll keep an eye on as well. I don't know. Maybe we'll live long enough to see whether there will be a time in this world where we'll know whether AI was better for the world or not. Hopefully we're still here to do a show on it.
Man, I'll tell you, we all have kids, and how many times have we said it? You fear for what, the future looks like for them for a number of reasons, not just AI, but a number of reasons. Sure. But man,
maybe they'll prove us wrong. Maybe they'll be better than us.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
Okay, that's it for us tonight. What do you think? Closer look at villagemedia.ca. It's an important topic, and we would love to get some feedback from you. So please take the time, drop us a note, check out our website, closerlookpodcast.ca. Tonight's show, as always, produced by the one and only Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. We appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.